All right, everything is logistics. Blythe Milligan here with Gray Sharkey, and we are talking about our next topic, and that is the state of returns. Because we're coming up on holiday season. I know a lot of companies aren't thinking about returns right now. They're probably not even thinking about holiday shopping at this point. You're probably starting to get more into like the budget mind. But if you're looking at your budget, you're probably going to be, especially if you're a retailer, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of impacts to your bottom line, to your margins that are eating into it. And one of the biggest drivers of that is return logistics. And did you know that there is a difference between return logistics and reverse logistics? I didn't know this, but
No.
apparently it was very clear. I saw a
I'm like
post.
trying to think in my head how it could be different.
So returns, how they define it, and is based on. So I told you this before we started recording, but for my show notes, when we determine the topics, like I have 3 different AIs like going in the background of like running these deep research reports on different topics, and then I combine all of that information into one kind of docket, and then I write my show notes and my thought processes on based on that research document. So I pulled a couple tweets that were talking about the difference between returns and reverse logistics, and returns equals the consumer process, where reverse logistics is the full circular flow of repair, refurbish, recycle. So the National Retail Federation frames this shift towards circularity as a cost and ESG play. So that's the difference between return versus reverse logistics, where and we'll get into some of these different examples, but just to give kind of an overview on the state of return logistics, is returns are the customer facing boomerang of commerce. So it's the initiate, ship back, triage, refund, or restock, while reverse logistics is the bigger engine behind it, where it's refurbish, resell, recycle, and keep value in the loop. And so in 2024, returns alone were projected to hit $890 billion. And so policies in tech are shifting from free and easy to smart and sustainable.
Interesting.
Because especially for
That's
return,
no,
I,
that now that you explain it though, that does make sense. The reverse aspect, especially the sustainability aspect too, is like they that full circle, right, of what's
yeah.
exactly happening. And once your product is unpackaged and things of that nature, right? Like where is that all going? Interesting.
Well, they talk about the boomerang economy, and they say the boomerang economy is real. It's fees, box free drop offs, even keep it refunds are reshaping the game. If you ran returns for a mid-market brand tomorrow, do you fix the policy first, the process first, or the tech first? And why do you fix which one of those first? And so if you think about it from the lens of like some of like Amazon, for example, like if you go to buy an outfit, it will tell you based on, so many reviews, this size will fit you best.
Yes.
There's also a notification on like the checkout process, or when you're looking at it, evaluating a product to buy, if this product has been frequently returned. Then there's the whole like checkout process, where do you want to combine these items into a single delivery day? Do you want to
Yes.
ship these items in the original manufacturer's packaging, or do you want to wait for our packaging? There's all of these different options that are technically part of return logistics. I believe, return
Yes.
logistics,
That would be
not
return.
reverse logistics.
Yes.
And so you're trying to combat that problem before it becomes a problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's almost feels like it almost feels like return logistics could be considered reverse logistics, but reverse logistics isn't always about return logistics.
Yeah,
They're
which is like new for, I think,
yeah.
both of us to
Well, yeah, yeah.
learn.
Well, it does make sense though, because there are it might have been this week, but I've definitely met people who are in more of like reverse logistics, but when you talk to them, their job is almost more of a like sustainability aspect, right? Like it's almost like what's your reverse logistics? From what I'm gathering, it's almost like what's your footprint you're leaving behind?
Yeah, the ESG play, I think,
Yes.
is how they phrased it. So more of a circularity and ESG play. But just take a look at so we've been building out, not to plug my own company, but it's my show, so I'll get to do it.
Well, I already did it, so
But Look at all of these companies that we have just in the returns category. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's a lot so far. I mean, some of these, they play in other arenas as well. They have different categories, like freight claims, obviously, is one
Oh,
that
totally.
has different categories that it could focus on. But there are lots of people trying to solve this problem. Go to
Yeah.
cargorex.com if you want to see more of these. Make sure you create a free account. So now I got that plug done. But yeah, there's so many different aspects to this because it's so expensive. It's
Yeah.
such a huge problem. And I was listening to this company called Loop and how they are integrating into Shopify stores. And what they're doing is they're charging a fee as you check out. So they don't want to give the, I guess, perception that all the returns are going to be free anymore. They want to
Yes.
give the optionality to the consumer to say, do you want to? So what they do is they have a guaranteed, like you can guarantee to get this item returned if you pay an extra like $2.99. So that covers your packaging, that covers some of the shipping costs, and then getting the replacement back to you. And so they charge that fee. And then it's also dependent on, are you part of a loyalty program? Are you a VIP customer? This is all like different aspects that Loop can kind of customize during your e-commerce checkout process. But they'll add that fee on. So then that way, from their thinking is that from a consumer perspective, I want to make the consumer think about this. Do they really want to buy it? And if they do want to buy it, is it some kind of an item that has a higher likelihood of getting returned? If you're buying like I don't know, like a Dutch oven or, a light bulb or something, you're less likely to
That's
need to return that versus a shirt that you ordered and you thought it was going to be cute
totally.
and then you put it on and it's a disaster. So
Yeah.
like certain things with like apparel, like you should probably be charging a fee to return this. And so they put it on the onus on the customer and say, like, you could lock in this cheaper return rate as a safety net for yourself. But if you did want to return it, later on, you're going to pay $5.99
Yeah.
instead of $2.99. So that's one way they're trying to alleviate it. I know with especially on the return side too, maybe you've experienced this, but like inside like the Shein app, like if you want to make if you do like a giant, like I've done like giant orders where I'll order like a dozen different items. And this most recent order, I think I want to keep like one thing from this order. Like the rest of it is just not good. So, but I have to wait, even though I know I want to return the overwhelming majority of the order because I just hate the way everything looks on me. Um, I have to now wait until those other items are shipped and I receive them. So then I can do one return.
Oh,
Otherwise, Shein is going to charge me if I do multiple returns for the same order. So there's all of these different mechanisms. So I know Amazon does it that way. There's also, with Amazon in particular, because they have the best logistics out of
yeah.
any kind of different, e-commerce offering out there. But when you return your item, you can go to a Whole Foods. You can go to, I think they used to have a deal with Kohl's. You can drop it off at UPS. So you can have
Yep.
UPS pick it up from your home. Like
Yep.
all of these things, depending on what their relationship is like, or what their partnership deal is like. Because I've noticed with UPS, they've started charging
Well,
depending on the return.
in some of the, I've noticed even on the clothing side of things, like people just kind of called it, I don't want to say quits, but either they just don't accept returns
Yeah.
anymore, or if you are returning, it's going to only be store credit. So at least they're not losing the potential revenue, I guess, that they would be getting from you, or they know, okay, the next investment we make will at least be something they're probably going to keep, right?
Yeah.
Or the next like shipping investment we make in them is going to stick, which I will say has pissed me off because some of those places I now don't buy from because I don't trust that the size is going to be there. Or I'm in my, being a short girl, I'm in my Taylor era where I'm just like, not like Taylor Swift, but
I was like, whoa.
that is funny. That,
It's like that is like breaking news right now.
yeah, I
And
know,
if you
right?
become a
Actually,
Taylor
that was like
Swiftie.
funny. I didn't even mean to. I meant like a tailor. Like I'll for sure get a size I know is going to be too big,
Yeah.
and then worst case, I'll take it to the tailor and get it done.
Smart.
But still, I know I'm gonna, okay, if I buy this, there's a really high potential that I'm going to have to spend $10 or something, right, to get a tailor too. So Yeah, it's funny. I'm happy that you like brought this up because I've just noticed that more and more with clothing, and honestly, my consumer behavior is because of it. It's honestly moved more and more to in-store purchasing. Is the clothing companies have just kind of given up on it, and I almost wonder from a true reverse logistics standpoint. So more so looking at their footprint, they're saying, listen, like we need our shoppers to figure out what the hell they want before we send anything to them, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of it all, regardless if your return logistics is good, I'm sure your reverse logistics manager is saying our footprint's going up, right?
Yeah. And it's definitely it's eating into your margins from a retail perspective. And for I think
Mhm.
that the multi-tiered approach I think is fascinating because then you're trying to prevent as many returns as possible before it ever gets to that stage, and then offering these different solutions. But what happens if none of those solutions work? There's also return fraud where, somebody I'm not gonna say who, but I have a friend who bought a record, and he bought a couple, and he kept the really expensive like collector record and put in the cheap record into the little, vinyl cover slot and sent it off to Amazon, and Amazon took the return, gave him all his money back, and he got to keep the item. So I mean, his mindset was like, well, F Amazon. Like, I don't care about this big company that's, screwing their workers over. There's that kind of mindset too of like just the overall return fraud, which I think is growing at, yeah, it was this stat here, fraud abuse pressure, because studies peg that 103 billion of losses tied to return and claims fraud in 2024, and that's only going to increase. Like, I saw this TikTok of this lady who was looking at some of these returns that were being sent in, and she looks at the reason, and then she compares it to, it was like these light up shoes for a little kid, and you could very clearly tell that those shoes had been worn.
Yeah.
And on the return, it said the reason for return is that the lights didn't work, and the lady's like sitting there, she's like, they work, but what is she? And all the comments are like, just process the return, grandma. Like, don't audit, the reasons why people are making a return. And it's like, well, at some point you gotta, kind of, where does the line stop and end? Like, where, when does, and I know I have heard of like, how you have your own reviews of like when you're getting in Ubers and stuff like that, where a driver can leave you a review. I've heard that Amazon keeps those similar profiles on their shoppers too. So if you're returning too frequently and too often, and you're returning for false information, then they have a certain percentage level of what they're willing to accept as far as like fraud is concerned. But I'm more fascinated by like the secondary effects of all of our online shopping behavior, because we've talked before in previous episodes on like the rise of like flea markets and vintage shops and secondhand shopping, secondhand stores, and like the thrill of the hunt when it comes to like TJ Maxx and things like that. And where I think this is also like playing a role in all of this is, have you ever seen those videos where like the people buy the pallets that are like all returns?
Yeah.
I am fat. The content does great,
Yeah.
first of all.
Yeah.
And then if you get to keep some of the stuff, like some of the stuff is really nice.
It is really nice. And they have, I think there's one of those stores by us too, where you can go and like buy maybe not a full pallet, but like boxes, right? That are just, and you're hoping. Yeah. I think that stuff
I
is,
would love to do one of those. Maybe
I
we should
know.
do it on like a future show and like
Yeah.
buy a pallet. Like unbox it.
Like, even honestly, like you pull a couple of good things out of there, it's worth it, right? Girl math. Like,
You can, I mean, it's the thrill of the hunt, right? That's the whole reason why, vintage shops and, TJ Maxx's and Home Goods, like all of these different shops have like that aspect to them where they don't have an online store because they don't want to deal with returns. They want you in the store walking around and hunting for different things. So I think it's that psychological aspect of like the thrill of the hunt, buy a pallet, see what you discover, buy a, similarly in, with storage units, all of those different things that we're just evolving as far as like the shopping experience is concerned too. And I
yeah,
think that's fascinating.
yeah, I love that. And we should do that. I don't know how we got to figure out how to do it.
Maybe we like each buy a pallet and then we'll just do a whole show of like unboxing where it's like just a bunch
What
of,
if we
yelling.
what if at Manifest we, like, got one delivered and we, like, used the podcast booth and we just, like, spent, like, an hour opening stuff up? Like, you're just handing it out to people
Yeah.
that
Unless
like,
it's good, then I wanna keep it.
well, yeah, no, the stuff that we don't want, we can just, like, give it out to people.
Yeah. That would, yeah, we're, like, brainstorming right now, and the audience is probably
Amazon
like, "What the hell?"
Amazon, if you're watching, can you sponsor and just bring us some whole pallet?
Well, it's not just Amazon, like, Temu does it. I've seen, like, people buy, like, in TikTok, like, they'll buy, like, TikTok or Temu pallets and get those shipped to their house too. There's all these, like, liquidation because I was watching a couple videos on it this morning of just like these girls in the UK who get these things shipped to their house. And
Yeah,
it's like a whole like box truck that shows up. They lift the pallet out and they just drop it at your front door. And then it's up to you to kind of sort through it all. And literally, like you just open up the box and it's filled with all these random clothes and items. And you can buy one that's like you could buy a pallet that's mostly tech focused or kitchen goods or
yeah.
I feel like eBay sellers are eaten right now with all of this access to, these returned items.
eBay's come back because of reverse logistics.
Right?
What
Or
a story.
right?
I love that.
So that is the state of returns. And if you want to find more solutions around this industry, just go to cargorex.com or cargorex.io, I should say, and then find the returns category, and you should be able to find a bunch of different providers that help out in that regard.